into the draft process myself just feeling like Justin Herbert is Paxton Lynch or he's Jake Locker. He's just one of these big, tall guys with a rocket arm. And I watched a 35-minute YouTube breakdown by a former NFL quarterback on Jalen Hurts and on Justin Herbert, and came away thinking, boy, all those problems that this guy brings up are all the problems that will just ruin you as an NFL quarterback for Justin Herbert. So I just don't see it outside of the big giantness and the giant arm. And Sage Rosenfels felt the same way after watching his tape. But Jalen Hurts is a funky one because he's not Lamar Jackson. So if you start making these, he's the best athlete. Well, he's not like an all-time level athlete here. And his throwing motion isn't perfect. Tell me if you've heard this story before. He's got great character. Yeah. He's a great competitor, and he's a leader, and all the guys get along with him, and he handled the Alabama situation really well. So we have these things that are wrong with him. The intangibles are great. He's a great athlete, and a lot of times this guy falls and ends up working out. So I'm interested. If he's a second or third round player and I'm the Minnesota Vikings and I'm not 100% sure I'm signing Kirk Cousins to a contract extension and I need a backup quarterback, I like Jalen Hurts for this. How do you feel about Jalen Hurts, Myron?
I love him, man. I think that's a smart pick. Now, he's not Lamar Jackson, but I do hope that the Lamar Jackson situation has encouraged GMs and execs to not put guys like Jalen Hurts in a box and give him a chance to show you his best stuff, which he's done all week. I mean, he's been putting on a show in Indy beyond the 4.59 40. Just some of the throws he's been able to make. And it's always interesting to me, man, that when you get to the NFL, we measure you according to, as a quarterback, according to whether or not you've won against elite teams.
Right.
You know, Kirk Cousins, the thing we bring up all the time is win-loss record in prime time, win-loss record against teams with the 500 or better record. And here's a guy in Jalen Hurts who goes to Alabama, and if he doesn't have a bad half in the championship game, you know, potentially he wins that title. Tua doesn't come in. Maybe he's the starter going into the second year, and we don't even hear about Tua until now.
Yeah, right.
Tua takes over, and it's as if Jalen had done something wrong, when really all he did was he was the second best quarterback for the best team in America.
And Tua's a top 2 pick.
Yes, and that was his crime. But no one's citing that Joe Burrow, who also transferred because he got pushed down in the rotation and wanted a chance to start.
Right.
No one's bringing that up. Jalen Hurts goes to Oklahoma and says, okay, you all think it's just Alabama, the talent around me. I'm going to take this team to the college football playoff. And I'm going to improve with, I think, a guy in Lincoln Riley who really helped him tweak some of his fundamentals and just made him a better overall quarterback. So, yeah, I think Jalen Hurts is a guy who certainly I would take a hard look at in the second or third round because, you know, this isn't some guy that you're going to move to tight end or wide receiver. He's proven at the combine he's a quarterback. And I think he's proven throughout his career that he has a chance to play at the next level and compete at that position, considering all the things that come with it.
So if he could become as talented, let's just say, as Marcus Mariota, somebody who runs but is not perfect when it comes to throwing the football, would you sign up for that? If you were the Vikings, would you sign up for that as a guy that would be your backup quarterback this year? And then next year, you don't know. Like at this moment, I don't even think the Vikings know for sure. I don't think that Kirk Cousins knows for sure. And we definitely don't know for sure. They were talking at the combine like he was going to be their quarterback for a long time, but that doesn't mean anything. Cousins could say, 17 games is coming up. That sounds like a lot of money is going to be all of a sudden available to give to Kirk. And if I was him, I would have the same mentality of, if you guys are going to go to 17 games in 2021, I'm not signing a 5-year contract extension because that salary cap's going to go up by $100 million, and then you'll have me on a really good deal, and I want to maximize my profit. So if you ran into a situation where Kirk Cousins just said, sorry, I'm just going to wait it out and maybe sign a 1-year deal with somebody else and wait till that big thing hits and go from there, I'm not signing with you guys. If you had to turn it over to someone with Marcus Mariota level talent, could you win with that if you're the Vikings? If you could put together a good offense with the same pieces, with Delvin, with Thielen and Diggs, assuming nothing goes wrong with Diggs, a first-round left tackle for this year, and then you have to hand it over to him. Because I think if you're talking about what his ceiling is, it's probably a little higher than that. But if you're talking about like most likely scenario of what he becomes, it's probably someone like Mariota.
Yeah, and I think it's the situation he's been in, both at Oklahoma and Alabama. I mean, are there some great quarterbacks who, whatever you put around them, they're going to shine? Sure. Most guys aren't in that category. And I think we saw Jalen Hurts at both Alabama and Oklahoma. When you put 5-star level weapons around him, he was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he would have here. He'd have Diggs and Thielen, healthy Thielen. You know, he'd have Irvin, Kyle Rudolph. He'd have Dalvin Cook. He'd have all these pieces. So, you know, you don't want to call a guy a system quarterback. But to me, if system quarterback means making the most of the talent around you, I think Jalen Hurts certainly could fulfill that role. And I think, you know, his running ability, he was just sort of a north-south guy. You know, you didn't see a lot of fanciness to his game. This ain't Lamar Jackson, but I just was always impressed by how he knew when to run and just his instincts on that, which is half the battle. I mean, I think the fact that he is just a really, really smart player means a lot. And why not give him a chance? I'm just happy people are talking about him as a quarterback. Because 5 years ago, honestly, 5 years ago,
he's playing running back.
They put him somewhere else.
Yeah.
They'd say, nope, you fit in the certain box, and we don't see you being a quarterback. And now you got all these black quarterbacks. You can't look at a Jalen Hurts and put him in a box. You got to give him a chance. But yeah, I think someone's going to get him, develop him, and I think someone will have at least a pretty good backup quarterback.
I have a tough time thinking that he can be an NFL superstar because the arm talent just isn't there to be an NFL superstar.
Is any quarterback in this draft an NFL superstar?
I don't know about that. The Burrow one is really hard for me to figure out because I was reading Daniel Jeremiah today from NFL Network, and I really like his work. Mm-hmm. He's got just insane amounts of insight and information on everybody, and he was a former scout himself. But he mentioned the name Tom Brady, and immediately my brain shuts off. Like, just click. Like, nope, sorry, you just can't do that. It's like when someone compares Jordan Love to Patrick Mahomes. I know what you're getting at, but no, I refuse to accept that. It's the same if somebody says, you know, this guy coming out in the NBA draft, it's got a lot of Jordan to it. Like, no, he doesn't. Nope. Just okay. You mean so he tries to play like Jordan and fails miserably in comparison?
People do that with singers all the time. You know, it's just she's kind of like Beyonce. No, she's not.
Yeah, sure, okay.
No, she's not. She
right. So no, I would not look at Joe Burrow like that. Now, someone compared him to Tony Romo. I like that much more as a guy who, if he has a great team around him, can be accurate and he has some athleticism, some playmaking ability. He can go off script a little bit, and the accuracy is really big for him. I like that, and you're playing at a high level, but you're also playing with a whole like superstar draft class. Like everyone from LSU who's available to get drafted is going to get drafted in the first and second round. It's almost like the Miami teams where they had there's like 8 out of 11 defensive players drafted or something that back in the day. So Burrow, I'm not sure of. Tua, if the medicals are okay, I really do like him as a franchise quarterback because he does have a playmaker element to him. Extremely accurate. His numbers are wild.
Yeah. But I don't know you get past that.
Right. Yeah. And so I think you take that guy just because. The Hurts thing becomes more interesting to me because of the sheer number of quarterbacks who have dropped in the draft over, well, you know, his throwing motion isn't perfect, or, well, he's just not tall enough, or he's too athletic, or whatever it might be. And a lot of times these do fail. Pat White didn't work out, but they also click more often than if you take in the third round some average schmo sort of quarterback who doesn't have any athleticism and isn't super accurate and ends up being Matt McGloin in the XFL, right? So for the Vikings, with their quarterback situation, I think it's always worth it to draft a quarterback, no matter where you're talking about picking one. And if there's 60-40, 70-30 that Kirk is going to stay, that 30% is enough for me to say, well, draft one. And then this guy's character is just A+. Mm-hmm. So you can put him in as a backup, and he's not going to cause you any sort of problems. He was the one that dealt with that Tua situation in Alabama really, really well. I think he could have been a problem for them, and he wasn't at all. He just went somewhere else and did great.
Yeah.
So I like that idea, and I like him better than some of the other quarterbacks who have the stronger arm or whatever it might be. Jacob Eason from Washington is talked about as a first-round pick. Who? What?
Yeah.
Oh, 6'6". That's why. So I guess what I wanted to ask you, Myron, is if you think that anything changed with the year of the black quarterback, with Lamar succeeding, Patrick Mahomes succeeding, and Deshaun Watson too. He won a playoff game, and not because the rest of his team was very good, that's for sure. I think the Texans are a bad team with a great quarterback, and all these guys dropped for some reason or another. Teddy's probably going to get paid. He dropped for a silly reason. And now I look at Hurts going, well, this is kind of history for you here if he doesn't get drafted high after all that he accomplished and all the conversations we've had about, yeah, running quarterbacks are actually good for you.
Yeah.
Well, this guy ran a ton, and you don't want that now. So I don't know. I feel like we talked about how this was going to change things, and this, in a way, if he goes in the 4th round, means that nothing really changed.
Yeah, I mean, that would be unfortunate. Again, I do think if anything's changed is that you can't put Jalen Hurts in a box. You can't talk to his team and say, hey, look, man, it's time for him to work out as a tight end or wide receiver.
Yeah.
Running back, some other position. You have to respect him enough to allow him to play his position and see how it goes. So I think that has changed. Like, here's what black quarterbacks have to overcome. It ain't the raw talent. The challenge becomes if you don't think that a black quarterback, and it ain't just black quarterback, it's black anything, can be an intellectual leader. That's what these guys are often overcoming. Yeah. I always thought with Lamar Jackson, the haters, a part of it was he doesn't talk like I do. You know, his diction's a little different.
Yeah.
He's not as, quote, articulate, is what a word you hear a lot of times used, right? And I think that
he speaks well.
Right? And I think that hurt him, that he was so Southern and country and raw that a lot of people thought, well, that automatically translates to you not being intelligent. And then when you compare a guy like that to a Russell Wilson, who is Fortune 500, put him on the cover of the brochure, wife is a music superstar, then all of a sudden you go, well, that's what a black quarterback should be.
Yeah.
But I do hope that people are seeing the diversity within black quarterback. They don't have to be the same thing. Mm-hmm. Russell isn't Deshaun. Deshaun isn't Lamar. That's okay. Mahomes is his own guy. So that to me is what has changed is stop trying to find a black quarterback who fits a certain mold. Mm-hmm. Respect them as a leader, not just with their athletic gifts, but also with their intellectual abilities. And also, let's make room to allow them to be themselves.
Yeah.
And not bring in a Jalen Hurts and say, which black quarterback is he like? Maybe he's just a good quarterback. Or maybe there's a white quarterback that's actually a better comparison. Everyone's afraid to do that, right?
Yeah.
I just think that to me is what I hope changes over time. But I do think it was funny. Someone asked Jalen Hurts, do you think you'll have to switch positions? And he said, no way, I'm a quarterback. And everyone seemed to respond, yeah, that is what he is. That is what he should be doing at the combine. Where at college 5-6 years ago, I think that's a different conversation without Mahomes, without Lamar, without Deshaun, without all these guys who've done it. And I think that to me, I really hope that's progress that, yes, this guy can do it with his athletic gifts, but he can also do it with his mind. And that to me is the progress I hope